I have to go.
There was a confusion about when we start at 1 or 1:30. I know you guys all saw it in the paper at 1 o'clock, and then Jackie sent out an email to the planning commission at 1:30. I sent one out to the planning commission at 1 o'clock, so.
They'll come at 1:15.
What's that?
They'll come at 1:15.
That, in a good world, that would be good. Hi, Jim, how are you?
I'm good.
And I'm gonna have to apologize ahead of time, I just got back from Candy for an eye appointment, and I took my glasses away to send off a new prescription, so I don't recognize people here, I'm not being rude.
How many fingers am I holding up?
Two. Struggling a little bit, working here.
Can you read?
What's that?
Can you read?
I've got reading glasses. Yeah.
That's all that matters.
Yeah, but I just, I saw you when I got close here, but I didn't see you when I got in, I'm sure. I just can't see that good, so I apologize. We'll get through it. Hey, how are you? You should have. My shoulder replaced first. Kind of a wreck type, right? How did you know? You never heard that? No. You gotta, pretending to be a cowboy. George Cannon.
Did you sign it? But you were, it's not more, you come out here. Good.
Yeah, because
I can do one of these. How about no time? Hey, Al's behind you. Need a hand.
No, I did, except that I won't be able to view their budget without, so I'm just gonna try to jack it together. I think I'm gonna keep it what happens. Because I got that, it keeps shutting off all the time. What? Give it to Sometimes I had to wait for them. I can't be in charge of all stories these people. They're just when he starts, I didn't start on to speak. That's recording right now.
No, actually. Are you coming into this meeting? Oh, I didn't have you sign in. Yeah, because he's been painful that they don't unmute everybody. People are calling in and not unmuting their phone, that's how come there's so much noise on. Yeah, let's go ahead and get started.
How are you? We're good. Yes. You got the email with Dale's name. Jack was here. If I can have your attention, we made you wait longer, and again, I apologize, there was confusion on whether it was 1 or 1:30 when the meeting starts, because normally our planning commission meetings start at 1:30. So, anyhow, thanks for coming. We'll call the meeting to order of the planning commission. We'll start out with the pledge of allegiance, please.
Allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We're going to have, there's going to be a number of people that call in, and I think Vernon is working on it now, right? Jackie?
Yes, and they can call in now. He just had to go unmute a bunch of phones. That's how come we were having so much noise. So we're good to go. He's going to stay there.
We'll start out, and then as soon as Vernon comes back in, then what we'd like to do over the last 6 months when we've been have meetings, people call in, so we want to make sure that we know who all is here on the phone, and so we make sure that they get their opportunity for input. But this is a meeting of the Planning Commission, and our sole purpose today is to look at a revision of the Custer County zoning resolution. And I don't know how many people have seen it. This is a Custer County zoning resolution, and the first one was in 1971, and things change, circumstances change, and so every usually a couple of years, sometimes longer, the zoning resolution is amended. And I think there have been something like 14 amendments. So it's a dynamic process which we go through doing it. And I thought what I do is just take a few minutes here and let you know the process that we're going to be doing on the amendment. As we do business, as Jackie does business, things come up. People may be confused about some element of this here, or there's any number of circumstances, and so we keep a list of those things that we would like to change in here to make it more clear, or to put in new situations that come up. And then usually what triggers the amendment process is when there were a couple of substantive issues that come up, and there were two of them this time. And one of them that the county commissioners, board of county commissioners asked us to take a look at short-term rentals. And I'm sure that's why most of you are here today. The other one is our county attorney, Clint over here. He wanted us to put in some information on seasons of six, and that's in chapter 12 of the zoning resolution. And so, because we had those two big issues, then we decided to do the whole amendment with all the other items. So the process that we're going to follow and we have started after we decided to make, after the board of county commissioners and Clint told us that they want this done, and then we had this other list of things that we want to accomplish. Then we started the process, and we started out with 2 workshops, and they were open. The workshops were open to the public, but I don't think anybody from the public attended. And the workshops are published in the newspaper of record, but I think a lot of people don't check that. And so we perhaps should have done a better job of letting people know of these workshops. But anyhow, we had 2 workshops to decide what we want to put into the zoning resolution, and that's what we're going to be looking at today. And then we'll go before the public for two meetings, this one this afternoon, and then one tomorrow evening at 6 to 8. And we do that because we want to accommodate as many people as we can, because they have different work schedules. So that's the process. Now, after we get done with these 2 meetings, then I'm sure we'll have another workshop to incorporate any changes that we come up with. And then maybe more than one workshop. And then we will go before the commissioners, and then the commissioners will make the final decision in a public meeting. And so that's the process. I know there's a number of things in the zoning resolution that we propose changes to. I don't know how many of you have looked at them, and a lot of them they're pretty basic, they're pretty minor. I'd like maybe a wording change to make things a little bit more clear, or maybe a word that should have been a singular and it's plural. So there's a number of things that you don't really want to be concerned with. I went through the changes that we have here, and I came up with, I think, about seven things where there were substantive issues, or not issues, substantive changes in there. But there's only really a couple of them where I think that you'll be concerned with. I'll identify those in case you have any questions. The first one is, have most of you looked at the suggested changes? Okay, some of you have, thanks. In section 6.4 on page 50, that's where we have structure standards, and we made some changes in, I'll look it up, make sure I give you the right information here. We made changes in the recreational occupancy, and it had to do with timing and what qualifies as recreational occupancy. So if anybody has any questions, you can address those in that one. The next one we have on page 57, section 8.2. It has with open and closing permit compliance and compliance inspection. And again, it's not tremendously involved, but there's a few minor changes in it. And I really don't think that most of you will have any questions, but if you do, you're certainly welcome to let us know about it. The third one is on page 62. It's section 9.3.5. It's a revocation of a special use permit. And again, that's on page 62. And what we did is just added a couple of items in there. I'll make sure I get them. One of them that it's been kind of assumed whenever you do an SUP that there's no activity that takes place on that process until it's approved or disapproved. Well, obviously disapproved wouldn't apply, but when it's approved by the Board of County Commissioners. So we put in there the sentences that any activity associated in association with a pending SUP application is a violation of the resolution and will result in termination of the SUP. Even though it's generally been assumed we didn't have it in there, so we put that in there. And then the second one we put in there had to do with the last SUP with Karen and John's son. And there was some confusion, and I was asked to withdraw the recommendation of the planning commission, and so we wanted to make sure that we put in there that the chairman could do that as long as certain conditions were met. The next one, which we'll deal with in a minute, section 9.10, is short-term rentals. On page 76 is 11.3. And let's see, I'll look that up and make sure I get it right. Okay, this is has to do with planned unit developments, PUDs, and we don't have too many planned unit developments in the county, but we have a few. How many do we have, Jesse? 5? Okay. And prior to now, PUDs applied to all 4 zones in Custer County. And then and some of it had to do with the upper arc situation, water situation. So the commissioners passed a resolution that PUDs would only be allowed east of Highway 69. And then, so what, in this the zoning resolution, we're just basically ratifying that and making it part of the resolution.
What's the PUD? I'm sorry.
PUD is a planned unit development, and it's an exception to the general regulations of Custer County, and it allows for very intensive use of the land. There's a lot of conditions to be met, and there've been very few of them. But it might be a situation where you have 40 acres and there would be several condominiums, or
I think I got it.
Okay.
Is that what's being built in town? Is that a PUD?
What's that?
Is what is being built in town, is that a PUD? An example of a PUD?
I don't think so, no. This would be an unincorporated part of Custer County, outside of the town, what's the Silver. And then the last item that I thought that I'd draw your attention to, pages 104 to 107, and it has to do with cease and desist, and it's put in there, as I mentioned before, my Clinton requested it, and it is to facilitate Jackie being able to go out and check on violations and do what she has to do to try to rectify those situations. And frankly, if you have any questions on that, I'm going to point right over here to our attorney, because most of it is legalese. It's very difficult to read. So with that, we'll start out with, well, first of all, does anybody have any questions on any of these items that I identified? Yeah.
Where are people able to see this document? Is it online?
It's not online yet, is it?
No, it's in our office, and we got it posted in the office.
Okay.
Because we make periodic changes And so we don't post it online for that reason. There's so many changes that people come in with the wrong ones. So what we'll do is after these two next public hearings, we'll put the changes on before it goes to the Board of County Commissioners.
Yes, ma'am.
Do you have any more printouts of the paperwork? Do you have any more packages of paperwork?
We have one extra right there.
Thank you.
Huh?
Well,
I'll get him another one.
Okay, is there any other questions on public hearing? Okay, we'll start on the short-term rental. The short-term rental, obviously, is why a lot of you are here, and the reason that we're taking a look at short-term rentals is because, basically because of the zoning resolution. If you go to section 7, section 7, and this talks about uses by right in the county. And we're kind of exceptional in this county that it's aimed at trying to maintain the rural atmosphere and the quality of type of life that we enjoy here, and probably the reason most of you are here. But there's only, in the current resolution, there's only 2 uses by right. One is residential, and the other is agriculture. And anything else that needs to be, any other type of activity that goes on in the county requires a permit, a special use permit generally. We have other types of permits. We have home occupation permits. We have special event permits. But by far the most common one is the special use permit. So, and normally the situation with short-term rentals is fairly unique because usually it's a single request that comes up. Like for example, Karen and John with their wedding venue south or west of town. We've had a bed and breakfast SUP. We've had an SUP for the West Cliff builders out on the Oak Creek grade. Usually it's a single situation. In this case here, we're talking about a whole umbrella of activity, and so we felt because of that it would be better and more efficient if we dealt with it as a special section for SUPs, and that would more efficiently handle it because of the similarities between RVBO and Airbnb and one of the other organizations. So that's why we did it. But the reason that we're looking at SUPs is because currently the activity of a short-term rental right now is in violation of the Custer County zoning resolution. And so what we're trying to, what the Planning Commission, our primary objective is to maintain those special values that we have here in Custer County, and at the same time meet the challenge of an expanding population. And we're getting more and more people, and a number of you who have been around a few years have noticed that we're getting more and more people here. So we want to get on top of short-term rentals. We don't want to restrict them. We want to make sure that we know where they are, and in case of any problems cropping up, we want the county in terms of health, septic, in terms of water, and so we're not trying to restrict SUPs, but we're trying to make sure we come into compliance in the most effective way possible. And so that's our motivation and what we're striving for. Mike, somebody raise your hand?
I started to.
Yeah.
Oh, I guess I'm concerned about why should people that live out here all the time and have a regular place be able to violate these things on a big scale, but people that are here just for, people that have other houses are gonna be, intensively looked at. That's what I'm saying.
Okay, and I'm glad you, first of all, I'll answer your question, but first of all, I neglected an important thing on how we're going to run the meeting. When you have a comment, we want people to come up to the podium here and state your name, and, you know, if you want to indicate your residence, that might be helpful for the planning commission members.
My name is Jim Bordenberg, and we have our house is up in, Rosita.
Okay, and I don't know whether we're having difficulty with getting people online, but we'll write, it's Jim?
Jim Bordenberg,
Spell, please.
B-O-R-N-B-E-R-G, and I signed that on the.
Okay, thank you. Okay, and then your question was, why people are violating?
No, if you're gonna have these rules. Oh, sorry.
no, right here, to the right.
If you're gonna have these rules, everybody that lives out here should live by them, not just the people that have a house that they're renting for a little while. You know, more times, we have places out here that look like trash. And there's a house up here on the hill near us that's got 25 or 30 vehicles just parked there. They're rusting away, they look like trash. But everybody else has to come along and make sure those people should also have to clean up their mess. That's what I'm saying.
Okay, if Jackie was here, I'd have her address it, because I understand what you're saying, and there's a lot of examples like that. But I'm not sure, Keith or Bill, you have any response to that? We don't have any,
There's not a trash or
trash ordinance or anything like that, and maybe there should be.
Except for, well, he's meaning that in general, I think he's talking to the general point, this is just one thing he mentioned was the cars. I think he's pointing out that there's a lot of people not following the guidelines that now these people are being required to follow. So he's saying that then everybody in the county, whether they're renting or not, should just as well.
Yeah, that's what I'm
Is that
saying.
correct?
Exactly.
It's not just the
I'm
traffic.
not trying to.
Okay, yeah, and then, well, listen, atypical the way we're doing this whole thing. Whenever you want to comment, please come up to the podium. We're going to try, as soon as we get all, everybody here, to restrict, I shouldn't use that word, to limit your initial comments to 3 minutes. And the reason we're doing that is we want to make sure everybody has the opportunity to comment. Then later, after we do that, then other people can come in, after all the other people can come in that are remotely tuned in to us, then we can start over again and you can comment again. So I forgot to indicate that. And also, we want to minimize talk within the audience, because when you're talking on this issue here, we want you to be talking to the planning commission. So my apologies, I didn't lay out the ground rules as well as I should have.
We got 2 months scheduled for this, right?
Right.
Just too much.
There's a couple of things here. You're going to get, we don't have, as Bill mentioned, we don't have any trash or cleanup ordinance. And we may want to do that at some point in time. The other thing is that situations that existed prior to 1971 are grandfathered in, and so you're going to get what we call non-conforming situations, and that's just because you might have a part. Right now, we're limited to 1 residence per parcel, regardless of whether it's 10 acres or 180 acres. But you're going to see some situations where there's more than 1 residence, and that's probably from some of the old-time ranches where before the resolution ever came into play. So, I understand your concern, and we had that concern too, but that's the best answer we can come with for you now. And we're taking, do we have the tape going out? Okay, good. Okay, next comment. Debbie.
I may repeat some of the things that Vic said. Thank you for the opportunity to speak to this commission about zoning resolution 9.10 pertaining to short-term rentals. I am Deb Adams, Chair of Custer County Tourism. I was very concerned when I first read the draft, so sought out understanding with the delightful 2-hour coffee conversation with Vic Barnes. I inquired what is the problem this commission is trying to solve. I now understand in their noble effort to keep Custer County's unique character and special charm, it has to do with Section 7 zoning district regulations and the uses allowed by right. This would be the reason for a special use permit which gives exception to the zoning. This is a very important matter that affects not only property owners, but tourism, economic prosperity, local small businesses, and the community reputation. It's now on the table for the Zoning Commission and stakeholders to come together with respect and understanding to solve the problem. I understand that short-term rental license requirements would help establish reasonable parameters for all short-term rentals. I have no doubt we all want to keep our county's character and charm. That's what makes us so special. This commission had 2 workshops where no one showed, which would indicate one of 3 things. Nobody cares, no one saw the notice, or you weren't looking for stakeholder input. Based on the audience today, I would say no one saw the notice. I know this is a public hearing. I'm not sure what gets accomplished. I would highly recommend another workshop attempt for a collaborative effort with stakeholders. After all, we're all in this together. Short-term rentals have become social distancing havens for the travel-starved. They give visitors an authentic Western experience in the Wet Mountain Valley. Short-term rentals provide flexibility to respond to increased demands in the summer with community events taking place. Staying overnight keeps the money local and keeps the towns thriving with this influx of visitors. The winter season is the biggest challenge for local businesses. Short-term rentals provide a boost in the economy with unique accommodations December through March. The Tourism Board views vacation or short-term rentals as critical infrastructure for the ongoing support of sustainable tourism, a top priority pillar of the Custer County Strategic Prosperity Plan. There has been a substantial increase in lodging tax because of short-term rentals. No new hotels have been built to add inventory. As the Tourism Board has previously stated, $2.75 million in revenues generated a 2% lodging tax of $55,000 in 2019 by local motels and short-term rentals. Colorado Tourism Office studies indicate that $2.75 million in lodging revenue resulted in over $15 million in total economic impact. The Tourism Board strongly recommends this zoning resolution be revisited with the valuable input of short-term rental stakeholders to develop reasonable and sound guidelines with regard to establishing the requirements of a short-term rental license. And just a brief commercial. Custer County Welcome Center is reopening on Thursday, October 1st from 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. And I hope you all stop by. If you have literature, please leave it at the Welcome Center. And if you want a really cool Wet Mountain Valley sticker, you can get it on October 1st. Thank you, Ben.
Thanks, Deb. And that reminds me, well, first of all, we did have a good discussion Saturday morning, and as I've mentioned, this is a unique situation that we have not encountered before. It's given so many people, so many different entities involved in a special use permit situation. But to kind of take off on what Deb said is that this is what we're proposing here. This is a draft, and we're not coming before you and saying this is the way it's going to be. we're coming before, we want your input. We feel it's very important to have special use permits, but I know there's some redundancy in this book here, as there is in a lot of similar books here. And so you have to kind of tolerate that, but there's some things that we may have put in here that aren't necessary. So we want this to be dynamic, and we want your input, and we're certainly willing to listen. And I think the planning commission would be receptive to having another workshop after we get done with these two hearings. So thank you. Next comment, please.
The information is to you what Don Wilcox from Westcliff, and we have Reynolds and a couple of locations in the valley. I actually had a kind of plan to run down this, but I'd like to address a couple of things that, well, the young lady seemed to address quite a few things that make sense with regard to that. But to answer the question where this gentleman came up, where you're not enforcing things on permanent residences, trash may be something that we can play semantics and throw an excuse out, but I'll give you one. When someone has a family reunion at their house and there's 15 people or 12 people staying in their house, they're overwhelming their septic, but you want to regulate mine. Correct?
Right.
Second, something you said, as far as trying to spin the definition of a property. You're trying to spin the definition of property usage. I'm using my property for residency, including when I rent it for short-term residency. It's no different than if I was renting it for 30 days, 60 days, leasing it for a year. I still have the occupancy that residence is designed for. In fact, most times I have less. I'll give you an example on one of my primary one that we've had for the longest time. Before we went to short-term rentals, we had 2 renters in there. Those 2 renters had their dates and or spouses there most of the time. That means there's now 4 people there. And one of the things we hear about is traffic. Instead of 2 vehicles driving in, I probably had 4 plus their friends. That's local people living here locally, using it as a long-term residence. For the same number of occupants on a short-term rental, I usually have 1, possibly 2 vehicles coming in and out of that residence for those time periods. So you're not going to tell me that there's more traffic and more impact on roads or structure usage. There's less people generally there as a short-term rental, even though we're still within the residence occupancy, because they very rarely have so many guests like you do for the holidays coming over. They don't have that. They're here short-term as a small number of people. So you're spinning the property usage definitions. It's still being used as a residence, period. Going right down this list of short-term things, the short-term rental may be permitted or granted at night discretion of whether we're going to get this permit or use. Who gives you the right to determine how I use my property? Whether I rent it long-term or short-term, or whether I use it just as a vacation or a guest house for my family and friends. Who gives you the right to tell me that when it's being used as a residence? The whole first list, A through H on page 70 of items that you would like to change, ensure all federal, state, and local licenses are obtained, protect public health, safety, and order. It's a residence. Who gives you, again, what gives you the right to determine how I use my residence? Most of these things are things normally done. I have insurance on my residence because my loan company requires that. My financial institution requires my insurance, and I personally don't want to lose it to fire, flood, or anything else without having proper coverage. I also have a liability on it because I'm doing the proven thing. But that's my responsibility to decide whether I'm going to be able to cover myself or not. And the silly things like smoke detectors and stuff, potable water, soups, that's, again, out there on Highway 69, there was a residence that had an overwhelmed septic system that let the septic overflow onto the outside, onto the ground for months. I can't do that with a rental. I need my residence to be safe, secure, and sanitary. But that was allowed to happen. You want to tell me how to use my residence? Well, I'm maintaining it better, as this gentleman's noted, than most people living here long term, because that's what is acceptable to my renters. It seems rather obnoxious and intrusive for you to think you can tell me how to insure, equip, etc. I have fire extinguishers, I have smoke detectors, I have all these things. Why do you think you need to tell me? I don't tell you how to do that in your house. I don't tell you how many fire extinguishers to have, how many, anything to have in your, or your long-term rental. You're renting to somebody month to month. I don't tell you how to do that. The government doesn't tell you how to do that. You choose to rent your property that way and equip it accordingly. Is that not normal? And as we roll down, there's two items on the second section under general requirements. Do you the maximum number of people allowed to exceed the approved septic system? We already discussed this. That's the example I use for this gentleman. Nobody's telling you how to not to overwhelm your septic system for a week while you have all your relatives after the holidays. I don't do that. In fact, in this particular rental I'm talking about, mine, the septic system is designed about 30% over the actual occupancy of the home. So I could actually go much over, and we'd have to put county records and all that, and they're all there. But my septic system is not going to be overwhelmed by a few extra people. Yours is, when you have a low standard, but nobody's telling you not to do that. It's fairly obnoxious and intrusive to tell you how to use your home. I wouldn't presume to do so. When we go down into the general requirements, permitted owner shall be responsible for collecting and remitting all applicable taxes. Those of us that are doing it appropriately through Airbnb, VRBO, and not doing it backdoor in the classifieds or in a magazine ad, we're already doing that. It's automatic. That's why we utilize companies like that and pay the fees that we do. That's the purpose of that. It's well regulated. As she noted, obviously they're collecting lots of taxes on us doing this. Exactly. And I'm paying my income tax, and you're getting the revenue here in town. And property taxes, I'm paying, I'm improving the value of my property all the time, because in order to make it palatable for renters, short-term renters, they need a nice, happy place that they're going to come to and be overwhelmed with how nice it is. How I had renters in there that I had to come back in and I literally rip out all my carpet, clean up all the property, repair fences, that's what happens with long-term rentals. Doesn't happen with my short-term rental, because I'm in there day to day, keeping the property value higher than it was before. And when we get down towards the end, unfortunately, we're looking at something here. Each owner of residence shall designate a local agent whose physical address, residence, you're wanting me to have not only be available 24/7, answer the phone, etc., etc., and then to designate and tell you who I have managing my property. That's mine to do. Do you do that with the local? Do you do that with Subway? Do you require them to tell you who their manager is from day to day? I don't think so. Now, I do answer my phone 24/7, 7 days a week, 365 days a year, because I want to run a successful operation. That would be stupid of me not to. But that's dependent upon me, my failure, or my success. I don't tell you how to run your business, whatever your business may be. I don't tell you how to run your farm, your gift shop, anything else like that. We don't require that you tell who the manager is. That seems a little bit, again, intrusive. When we get down to the very last portion, alert, all STRs will be required to follow the posted guidelines of the state of Colorado and Custer County Health Nurse at all times. That's a real trick bag. You want to put that in there.
Follow their own guidelines.
They don't follow their own guidelines, they violate them, violate quarantine procedures, and don't know what the guidelines read. Because I'll tell you right now, I walked in here wearing a mask. I'm not required to. I have a health condition that actually restricts me from breathing properly, but I did, because I want to come in here and have this conversation. They can't follow those guidelines. They don't follow, in fact, some of our county commissioners can't follow those guidelines as dictated by the nepotistic folks working for the county. You want me to follow those guidelines? Now, I did, way beyond what they did. We shut down at the first sign of an issue, because that's the responsible thing to do. But when travel became a thing that was available again, we opened right back up and ensured that everything was thoroughly sanitized, everybody was aware, etc. All those things, because it's a responsible thing to do. Again, what responsible, intelligent citizens of a free America will do. It seems like that very piece is nothing but government extortion, because I have read the governor's guidelines, which we can go into, again, the trick bag of that. But the reality is, the only way you can enforce the silliness on people is to extort businesses. And that's a way to try and extort me and put me out of business if I don't follow your dictates. That's a whole nother trick bag that we can deal with the county commissioners, but I'm sorry, that's obnoxious to do to begin with. This is free America, and I'd like to know, with these kind of things, who is it on the county commission or this planning commission that has a vendetta against Airbnbs? That's what it sounds like, that's what it feels like. Because we're, again, especially when I hear things like that, and I'm sorry, I don't mean to be offensive to you, sir, but the spin of the definition of using a residence as a residence, because I have 5 groups of 2 in a residence, is no different than if I have 1 group of 2 for the same time period. That is still being utilized as a residence. And I have a hard time understanding why any of this. This is a solution in search of a problem. There's no problem here. There's nothing wrong here. We're using residences as residences. If you need special use for a special event, such as a wedding venue, been there, done that. My wife and I managed a golf course for a long time. Yes, if you have a special function that needs to happen, so be it. But most of us, I've had weddings at my house. I had people living there, sleeping there, eating there, and spending money in our town. We can go through those numbers too, and I'll end with that. One of my residences, and I can show you the numbers, just on the volume of traffic through there, is about $45,000 in revenue into this town's economy. Gas, restaurants, groceries. If you don't want that, so be it. You say you want tourism. Stop trying to step on it.
Thank you. Yes, sir. Next comment, please. Yes, sir.
Bob Canterbury. I just want to kind of reiterate some of the things that have already been said, especially the one short-term rentals. In order to stay in the business, they're going to have to be well-maintained. And we could do the same thing with long-term rentals, and a lot of times those homes don't even get checked on regularly, where with the short-term, after everyone leaves, they go in and they're well-cleaned, well-maintained. So I think that's an important thing to note here, is that anybody who wants to be successful in it is going to take care of them. And those have, at least from our perspective, we're not overloading the homes, so we want the septic systems comply with the water requirements as well. And I think Custer County for a long time has wanted good, clean, low-impact business to come in here, not factories or anything else. And I think this is a solution to that, and I think it would really behoove us to get behind it and back it. So that's my only comments. Thank you, Dave.
Thank you, we appreciate it.
Thank you.
My name is Glenn Seibel, and some of the comments that I am going to make, I think, are unique to our short-term rental operation, and also I want to make some comments that I think will include all short-term rentals. In 1998, prior to purchasing our 81 acres on the west side of the valley, we inquired of zoning as to the possibility of having guest houses for short-term rentals. Our desire was to provide a place of solitude and rest for pastors and missionaries who were on sabbatical, as well as vacationers when available. Link Lippincott, the zoning officer, gave us detailed guidance and instructions to follow that, among many other things, included a completely new and separate sewer system for our guest houses. With zoning's approval and blessing, and well over $100,000 in expenditures, we were ready to begin our short-term rental adventure. In the last 21 years, we have had hundreds of guests who have provided welcome income, lots of county revenue and taxes, and much-needed housing services and untold thousands of dollars of purchases of goods and services in our community. One couple has come for 11 summers, and many others have been repeat visitors to our accommodations. On numerous occasions, we have rented to people who brought their horses with them. This is possible with our rentals because of our horse facilities and our close proximity to the trailheads. Our experience with the zoning office relating to the 12 properties that we have owned in the valley in the last 22 years has been reasonable and practical. Regardless what the special use permit is called, it's another tax on tourists. And like the lodging tax, I can't imagine how taxing tourists more will bring more of them to the valley. I do not believe the $500 fee for special use permits will provide more revenue for the county than what will be lost by restricting short-term rentals. I hope zoning, the citizens of Custer County, the commissioners, and the planning commission can see that this burdensome proposal has the potential to hurt economic development, reduce tax revenue, decrease property owners' income, and decrease property values. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Seibel. Yes.
My name is Noreen Seibel. That's my husband. That's just up here. And I just want to say that our property is located on 80+ acres in the foothills of the beautiful Salisbury Mountains. When we went about setting up this property for our vision to provide a place for pastors and missionaries, we went to zoning because our objective was to do our best to preserve the beauty and uniqueness of this incredible valley. We did what they instructed us to do, and in addition, we had our property put into a conservation easement in the local land trust. This unique property affords us with extreme peace and quiet. At 8,800 feet elevation, we have amazing views of the valley and mountains. We have lots of wildlife, bear, turkeys, elk, deer, occasional mountain lions, at least 80 species of birds, and a raven that has us trained. These things contribute to our guests coming back year after year. The sky is incredible during the new moon, and many of our guests have seen the Milky Way for the very first time. It is not our goal to be in competition with anyone in town or with others who have short-term rentals. We consider our property unique for a unique purpose. There are people who call us, and after we explain what we have available, they choose to be closer to town because they are here for the bluegrass festivals, rodeos, 4th of July fireworks, etc. We have even had people who choose not to come here to our place because they are just plain too scared to be that far away from people and the lights. As my husband has said from the beginning, our focus has been to give pastors and missionaries a reprieve when they have needed a place of solitude. We believe we have been given this honor by God to share with others who would not otherwise have such an opportunity. And we have been doing this for 21 years and have never had a complaint nor a problem from anyone. Not our visitors, not our neighbors, not anybody. So we don't understand exactly what's going on here. But as this one person, I don't really remember what his name was, said, we take care of it because this is what we do. This is what we want to do for people. We want to celebrate with them this beautiful place that God has given us. We love this valley, and the people that come here, we want them to have the same experience as what we have by living here. Thanks.
Good afternoon, my name is Leanne Baird. I'm the president of Rancho Trail Vacation Rentals, located 16 miles northeast of West Cliff. I have earned an organizational communication degree from the University of Colorado. I too wish to keep Custer County beautiful and economically thriving, which I am reminded of every time I drive by the Miranda for the past 15 years. I did not see any announcement about the workshop regarding the zoning change, which I would be willing to attend in the future. So I will describe real briefly here how the online reservation system works for STRs. I dare say the majority of Custer County STR owners use these services and for a fee. There are two popular online reservation sites called Airbnb and VRBO, called Verbo, which stands for Vacation Rental by Owner. STR owners must comply with their lodging requirements in order to be listed on their site. Owners' success depends on guest reviews. So we are not slumlords, but responsible business owners. Owners are required to have and maintain insurance, safety devices, and incorporate COVID-19 safety practices, and basically all the general requirements that are listed in this proposal. Airbnb and Virgo have contracts with the state of Colorado to quarterly submit state, county, and lodging taxes for the owners for a fee. We've had some wonderful guests, and our mission statement for Rancho Arturo is to be a respite for human and wildlife. I've got a couple of reviews that some people have left with us. Paulina wrote, surrounded by beautiful views, the cabin was wonderful for a family of 4, 2 adults and 2 children. We visited Mission Wolf Sanctuary, Rainbow Trail, Bishop's Castle, and of course, the wonderful coffee shops in Westcliff. We are looking into another long weekend to be back. At Rancho Arturo, we provide lodging where families can spread out and have a little bit more room to relax. Another guest wrote, it's a glorious off-the-grid experience. We went for a 2-night getaway from the city, Denver, and the COVID world. It was amazing. It was without a doubt the cleanest place I have ever stayed. You can tell that an incredible amount of work was put into the details. We could have spent a week on the porch just watching the deer and seeing the views. There are so many things that we didn't do because we were just so content to be there. I have never been so relaxed in my life. A return trip is a necessity so we can do more. This is definitely the place to go to get away from it all. It's so quiet and so beautiful. I wish I could give it 6 stars. 5 stars is the top. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
My name is Doug Bear. I'm married to this beautiful woman that just spoke. I'm a paint contractor. I've been doing this for 45 years, and I built my business on honest, hard work, good communication, and good business standards. And this is how we run our business. We take great pride in what we have. And when people come in and just see this place that we provide for them, they just love it. They just kick back, relax, and enjoy their time. If we do decide to continue with these regulations, I don't believe any current rental should have to be forced to be shut down until they should be given a grace period at least to comply. Now, my other question is, how come it's just these home businesses are being targeted? Why not all home businesses? There's contractors that are running the business out of their houses. Should not be the same. What about long term? I mean, are they going to be, do they have to have a special use permit too? Those are my questions. So thank you for your time.
Thanks a lot.
Hi, I'm Karen Sund with Green Peaks Ranch. So I'm going to follow up with something he just touched on, that a couple of the things that I'd like to give input on is the fact that a couple of the points that they wanted to add in as changes is no advertising or activity prior to getting the SUP, and no, so basically you'd have to stop all rentals immediately. And for a lot of us, we're booked out, 2, 3, 4 months ahead of time. And so it's not only, an incredible amount of families that we would have to disappoint by canceling those reservations, but you also lose your superhost status on Airbnb if you have one cancellation in a year. And it's like a year of probation if you have to cancel a reservation. And so there's just, not to mention, You know, a lot of us are really, you know, struggling to, you know, make it through COVID and, you know, just loss of income. And this is something that's, you know, really helped a lot of us to make it through. Sorry, really tough times. And so, you know, I think, you know, if you guys are going to go through with some kind of a rental permit process, I think it would be hopefully a lot easier than the SUP process, because that was pretty brutal and really long and lengthy 6-month process that I think if a lot of us had to wait, you know, 6 months to get that permit, it would be crippling. And let's see, the other thing is no simultaneous rental to more than one party. Again, we have 2 Airbnb rentals on our property that both do really well, and a lot of times it's just like one couple in each rental, and they're really quiet, and a lot of times you don't even know that they're there. And so I guess I understand why you can't have more than one rental. And also why not bunkhouses? Because I think a lot of people, when we built things, were permitted as a bunkhouse, and they're beautiful cabins. And so I guess I don't see what the harm is in renting those out. And I think the cease and desist, I think the part of that that's going to be really difficult for people is it's going to prohibit them from occupying or using their property while it's rented. And for a lot of us, we live on these properties when we're not renting them. And so if for some reason there's a violation or if you can't stop your rentals right away, like this would require everyone to do, then we would be locked off our own property while it's being remedied, which we all know could take, you know, 2 to 6 months or even longer if there's a whole bunch of us trying to get these permits. So, yeah, anyways, that was my feedback. Sorry for the motions.
Thank you.
Good job, Slap, Richard.
Another comment?
I'm Nancy Brandon. We have a ranch on the valley floor, and I went to both workshops. I thought the first one was fairly lively myself. The local agent requirement, I don't remember that being mentioned in either of the 2 workshops. And I guess I'm asking, is this being required because of data showing an excess usage of, let's say, sheriff's resources, fire department, EMS, by short-term rentals? Or is this being done as a preventative measure because other municipalities have this requirement in their regulations? Let me see. And then the other thing is the fire department ready to come and inspect like 100 of us? Some people with multiple properties, and it would be really helpful if they would post or direct us to the regulations they're going to be inspecting to, so we don't have to have them come out and say you need an extra carbon monoxide detector here, and then we have to have them come back again when we remedy it. And then the third thing is, don't want to tell you how to do your business, but if there are 100 of us that need to go through this special use permitting, and I sat in on the Three Peaks Ranch one, and it is pretty long and involved. Maybe it could be more administrative if everybody has all their paperwork together, you know, provides it all to you in a packet, you send out all the letters to the neighbors, and the neighbors have no complaints, there's nothing irregular. Maybe you make it much more administrative. We've checked all this off, they've done all the steps. Do you really need us to come and present, or could you look at our Google Maps site plan? Here's our house, here's our parking. Our neighbors all say we're good. They don't even know we're doing it actually. we had to tell them, just in case. So, that's my questions, and I did email Jackie about the definition of a primary residence, exactly what does that constitute? Because we are here whenever we rent. However, we also have a house in Denver. So that is actually where we currently have our legal residency for voting set up. I mean, we could change it to here, that's not a big problem, but just if we're on site, we're here, we're in 5 minutes of our property. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, everybody. I'm Katerina Sky. Thank you for doing this. Thank you for sitting through another, well, hopefully it's more enticing, interesting meeting for you all. Unfortunately, my husband can't be here. He's, well, no, I don't know what he can do, but he's been fighting fires, so he's been very busy. I didn't think that was going to come up, but I'm human. Anyway, we bought our property 3 years ago because we fell out with this family to Airbnb rentals. And I was actually born in Germany, but I'm a U.S. citizen, so I thought the Germans are coming back. But, okay, that helped me making a joke. What I want to say, I want to also, everybody that's spoken has brought up some very important points. The gentleman that was very passionate and very emotional in a different kind of way, you know, he brought up some important points, but everybody did. And I can tell you that without the Bureau, we couldn't have moved to this valley. It really helped us. And, you know, whenever there's something new in the world, like, all of you know when the fax machines came about and then the internet came about, and, you know, there's things that come into our lives that we have to adjust to and find ways to, you know, live with and grow with. And I found, because I used to be long-term rental, I had 3 rentals, and I tell you, it was hard work. Compared to this, it's been very pleasurable. Incredible people have come to our property, and other people have said they love it here, they want to come invest here, they want to come live here. And I, like many of us, we want to keep the specialness of this place and respect our neighbors that don't necessarily want to do what some of us are doing here, but we want to keep this valley special like everybody else. And putting a lot of restrictions on us who really do take incredible care of our properties. I always joke, my husband is Swiss originally, and we have mitigated our forests. I tell them, people are going to drive down 69, they're going to go, whoa, what's that clean spot of land there? Because he's mitigated our property to where everything else around us, because he's also a forester, not just a wildland firefighter, you know. But that's just an example. It's not to show off. It's just, we really pride ourselves to be here and contribute. You know, I've employed a lot of people that were down and out, you know, with cleaning, with helping doing things on the property. We bring not just revenue to the businesses, but to individuals. And if this becomes too complicated, too regulated, which is why I love America, because everybody's always fighting against those regulations that we have a lot of in Germany. It's going to have people go and go into counties where it's more friendly for them in that way. And I just really propose that we work together so that we respect our resources, our people, but, you know, all these incredible people that are contributing so much to this valley, and just like you are in your way, and I really appreciate it. I have to stand up, I can't sit that long, I have too much energy. So anyway, I think that was the main thing. Thank you for letting me speak. This was my first time ever doing anything like this. I am here because
you guys. Opening his mouth. And anyway, thank you for, I know this is all new to all of us, and so I know we're gonna work it out together. Thank you. Thank you.
I am Ron Bullard. I think I'm kind of misunderstanding this whole thing. I thought that this was a proposal. It's not a done deal. You're asking for suggestions. You're not saying this is the way it's going to be. Am I on the right track here?
Good, explain it. So we'll have this public hearing and then the one tomorrow night. And then the planning commission, if they decide, might have one more workshop, or they could decide to make a recommendation to the county commissioners, not going through with the short-term rentals, or tweaking the short-term rentals, or keeping them as they stand. So this is to get your input on what you're thinking.
Well, I think this is wonderful that you're asking for our opinions and not just saying this is the way it's going to be. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Caroline Bornberg. And my wonderful husband over there, and excuse me, in Blumenau, which is of course a German word for a great place in Brazil, I believe. But we love being here. We love being part of this community. And I'm just going to say that I'm so thankful for everybody I've heard of here. I have totally agreed with, which one way in my mind, I don't know about anybody else. Our first two guests for our VRBO will be two middle-aged couples who will take good care of our house, they promise. When do you ever get that? I love this place, I know this can work, and I think that everybody is on the same page and on the same board. And everybody we've brought this beautiful place has wanted to come back and or buy here. And I bet that some factions don't like that, but I think bringing in real wonderful people is a good idea for a place that can support it. So if we can use our growth resources wisely. Here I go, I have trees. Okay, our resources wisely and for the best use of the whole county and people here, I think we will have something very, very special. And I'm really, really glad to be part of this. Thank you.
Cole Mushrush, I'm from the Hillside area. I have two comments. First one is on section A where it says a short-term rental permit may be granted. Just language-wise, shall be granted, I think is better language, just because who's to say if the planning committee just decides they don't like that person? They obviously have parameters, but you never know. It's just, not saying you guys do it, but in the future, just a language thing. I know that's something that's come up a lot with like concealed carry permits, stuff like that in different states, and sheriffs deciding they just don't want to issue them, so they don't. And second comment would be, how is this all going to be paid for? And not just oversight of it, the enforcement of it, all of that. Where is that money going to come from? That's what I got.
Thank you.
Anybody else?
I know sure one. I already read that, just had one more.
Everybody else had a chance to talk that wants to talk right now?
I want to say something in a minute.
Matt, I'm going to go first.
Oh, yeah, okay, all right.
This is just a short thing. I was talking with Karen, who I just met. So something that myself and actually, this lady, that I just met. So I do also suggest that us who are in this business, which is really a newcomer business in this last decade or less, that we come together because I know that I've seen people that are bad short-term rental people, owners, and I've also seen bad renters, not very many. Literally probably out of 100 rentals, because I've had 3 in Denver, literally maybe 3 out of 100. But the main point I want to make is that we come together so that we support also the county, because that is a lot for everybody to regulate and do. Let's come together and help each other and help the county to address these issues, because we all love doing it and we want to give back. And so that's what I have we should talk about. So, thank you.
Good afternoon, I'm Matt Miles. I guess, I think first, these proposed regulations have no applicability in the city, is that right? Only in the county? County only. Second, the framework under which this county is operating the basic framework was put in place in 1971, wasn't it?
That was the first resolution, correct.
And was that the resolution that culminated in the 80, 35, 15, 10 acre zoning schematic or scheme?
That's when it was established, yes.
And
there was 5 zones at that time, now we're down to 4 zones, that's when it started.
And as I read the regulations, zoning regs here briefly this afternoon, and I've read them, it's been some time ago. As I understand it, the only permitted use in the county pursuant to those original regulations was ag-related, ranching and farming, is that right? And have those zoning regulations been modified since then? From the standpoint that anything other than, like, is a retail store permitted 4 miles south of town?
But from the very beginning, it's been, the use by right has been those 2 that I mentioned.
Farming and ranching.
And then residential.
And private residence essentially for the farm, if you had one. If not, you could still have a private residence, but still no retail store in the residence.
Correct.
And then I think I heard someone say that there are about 100 of us doing these Airbnbs in the county. I thought I heard 100.
Nobody mentioned that. My understanding, talking with Charlie Ellison, that he did know that there's about 70. But it's not, I don't think it's quite 100, Jackie, do you?
No, I am looking at around 70.
Okay.
That would be, and have there been 70 special use permits granted?
No.
For Airbnbs?
No.
And were any of those Airbnbs in operation in 1971 when these zoning regulations were enacted in this county?
Not to my knowledge.
None of them would be grandfathered then. Is that right?
Yeah, that's true.
And all of those then are operating illegally, aren't they?
That's correct.
And is this an attempt here to try to address that problem?
This is an attempt.
When I say that illegal use of the property.
Yeah, it violates, we're not in compliance now with the zoning resolution. And what we're interested in is that we're not interested in the money. The planning commission deals with land use. We don't deal with economics. We don't ask you any questions about how much money you make, or we don't ask Debbie how much money goes into the coffers. we're interested in land use and maintaining this rural atmosphere that we've got. And we're not trying to shut down anything, but we feel that we need to get some kind of we need to understand what's going on when there's 70 of these going on in the county. We need to understand what's going on. And there are some, and I think probably most of the people here are way above board and doing a very good job. But anytime you get that number of people, you're going to have some. And we've heard some complaints. We've heard some complaints about noise. We've heard complaints about trash. We've heard complaints about burglary. And so there's always going to be some problems. And if we know what's going on, we're better able to address those. And then, Matt, you know as well as anybody, we've got water problems, we've got septic tank problems we may want to deal with. And so we're not trying to shut anybody down. And I guess I'm getting going beyond it. Like I think Karen mentioned something about people being shut down for 6 months or something. Our intent is not to do that. We'll certainly work with everybody and to be grace period, but we're just trying to get a handle on this big, there's nothing that I can recall of Keith's been on the planning board. I have to recall anything of this magnitude before this time. I can remember, the only thing related I can remember, 10 or 15 years ago, we did a special use permit to a bed and breakfast. And that's about the only thing related that I can recall.
Well, I heard a lot of people talk about how beautiful the place is. That's why they were here. They came here, they were struck with it. And this place is the way it is today because of the foresight of the people in 1971 that set this scheme up, isn't it? Now, I also heard someone say that this regulation should say, shall issue such a permit. Isn't that just a backdoor change in the zoning that was set up in 1971 to make this place the way it is today?
I'm sorry, would you repeat?
If the words may issue the special use permit are changed to the word shall issue the special use permit, that's just a change in the zoning that says ag use and short-term rentals, isn't it?
Right. It's an approval process.
Yes, sir.
And we don't make the decision. We make a recommendation to the Board of County Commissioners, and then they do the approval. But you're right, it's not a guarantee. We're talking about guarantee. It's not a guarantee when you put in for a special use permit that you're going to get it. And so that's why the language said may.
And there was no guarantee when the property was purchased here that it was going to be allowed to be a bed and breakfast at the time of purchase, unless it was purchased prior to 71 and then grandfathered in, isn't it?
You're correct.
I would suggest that this is indeed a momentous decision that's ongoing here. It is. I would suggest that this place is on the crux of a change for a number of reasons. And I would suggest that this process, this entire scenario, needs further in-depth study, much more than apparently has been given to it so far. Now, candidly, I didn't even know it was ongoing. I don't live here. I try to keep myself abreast of what's going on here. But again, I would suggest that there needs to be an extensive workshop process to try to evaluate how we got here, why we're here, how we're going to try to keep this place the way it is, because most of the people that are here to be here. So that would be my simple request on the matter. Thank you.
Any further comments? I don't know, has Vernon made any connection with people who have called in?
Do you want me to unmute everybody?
Yes.
Yeah, we'd like to know who is attending, Vernon.
Okay, we have approximately 15 people on right now. I will unmute them and allow public comment.
Okay.
Thank you.
Peggy Collins. Can you hear me?
Hi, Peggy. Yes, we can.
I just want to let you know that I've been listening since the beginning of the meeting, and I could understand about 25% of what was said. So I was unable to attend in person. I think that something needs to be done about the sound system so that those of us who wish to participate can do so. That's all.
Thank you, Peggy.
As far as the zoning goes, we need the VRBOs and the Airbnbs here. We don't have enough beds in this county for the number of tourists who come here. That's my opinion. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else?
Remotely, anybody else want to comment? Please identify yourself.
Yes, this is Suzanne, S-U-S-A-N-N-E Wheeler, W-H-E-E-L-E-R. And we have a house in one of the covenant communities nearby, right south of town. And my question is whether the issue maybe isn't more basic, and that is to identify Airbnbs and VRBOs as businesses so that they are either registered or have a permit. You know, in other words, if you're saying it's not a money issue, perhaps they could just be identified on a list as businesses with a permit, and that would be helpful not only for them collaboratively, but for people coming into the county.
Okay, thank you. We'll take that into consideration. Anybody else? Vern, are you still on there? I was hoping.
I'm here. There's still a lot of people, but they're not speaking right now.
Okay, Vernon, do you have a list of the people that attended remotely?
I have cell phone numbers.
Okay, that sounds good. We want to make sure and know who all was attending, so. Now we have somebody else here. If there's nobody remote, we have somebody else that wants to speak.
Vernon, go ahead and mute everyone, please.
Good afternoon. My name is Bob Centerhoff. I am a resident of the county for the last 48 years. I've been in a lot of these various meetings throughout the years. And one thing that I have not seen in any of the information that has been put out so far is, have you gone and met with any of the homeowners associations? We have 125 plus subdivisions in the county, and we probably have about 25 homeowners associations. And what I am personally concerned about is, are there things that you are doing that are going to be in conflict with them, or is there anything that they're doing that's going to be in conflict with you? So I guess my comment would be that I think that the Planning Commission should have some type of a session with the homeowners associations, and maybe if there is something one way or another, that could be addressed prior to any decisions that are going to be made by this panel. Jackie,
We don't enforce covenances.
I can't hear it.
We don't enforce the covenances of homeowners associations.
You don't enforce them?
No, we don't.
No, you do not. They enforce their own.
Correct.
But do you think that there's a possibility of a conflict anywhere, one side or the other?
Jackie would win,
Not what I want. So anyway, that's my suggestion. And I do have one comment in my particular business. I have had people in my office over the weekend that have taken a look at what's being proposed, and they are very concerned. They too wanted to do, of course, good portion of these folks want to do, as an Airbnb of some kind. And after they looked at the regulations, they have decided not to come to Custer County. So it is an issue in our business as well as, I don't care if you're a rancher, I don't care if you're a politician, I don't care who you are, but we got to get it all on the table. Thank you.
Thank you, Bob.
Could she have another turn?
Hi, my name is Bianca. I'd like to reiterate that I am actually not a county resident. I live in town. I have Ravens lodging on 5th and Main and 11 Granada Court. So I was really kind of wondering if I should even speak, because technically it really won't affect me directly as a business, but I think as a person in this area, it's going to affect the amount of visitors and therefore everybody in the area, whether you're a waitress, a bartender, a contractor, whatever. There's 3 points, a lot of really great points brought up today. It's tough to talk up here, isn't it? A lot of really great points brought up and a lot of emotion. And I think I may be, summarizing off my own observations here, but I think a lot of that emotion comes from feeling targeted as a person, resident, a possible business sector. One of the things that's perplexed me since I moved here, I'm from Manitou Springs. I grew up in Manitou Springs since 1978. As far as I'm concerned, I'm an American, I'm a Coloradoan, and I have a right to be here. There's a sector of people who really don't believe that here. And it's always confused me, but in the end, I don't care. I'm here, this is my home. I've been in Colorado for 40 years. And people don't want me here, I don't care. But there seems to be a little bit of an imbalance sometimes on how things are looked at. Certainly the big bad Airbnb or the big bad VRBO, right now is getting a lot of intense spotlight. That's really not only making people feel like their financial basis perhaps is at risk in an already unstable time, but even more so, what we are watching here. When I look at the verbiage and I hear about, due to something that was put into place in the 70s and 80s, this type of business being illegal, but nobody's looking at the people in the entire county that are plumbers, that are contractors, that are electricians, that are landscapers, that have 2 to 5 employees coming on and off their property on a daily basis, employee restroom, bookkeeper, massage therapist, life coach. I don't know, you could really just fill that in on and on. There's a lot of businesses in this county, and this sector is being looked at as legals. And I think if I can, stretch the financial but also emotional repercussions of that, when people don't feel like they're welcome here, don't want to come here. But how is that fair? How is that fair? This sector is going to look at this closely. I hope somebody that lives in the county takes it upon themselves to make it fair across the playing field. Every business that's on that area of the county then is also legal. The second point is verbiage. One of them was brought up as far as, once you meet these requirements, you then shall be granted because you met the requirements asked. There's a lot of verbiage in there like, do you have adequate water, adequate sewage? Is parking sufficient? Is it, is that okay, basically? Well, based on what? According to whom? What numbers? What studies? What guidelines? Versus the average home, versus the year-round resident, versus the long-term renter, versus a short-term rental, which half the year probably sits empty, or can sit empty. So based on what actual facts, just not somebody's loose interpretation of, is it sufficient or is it adequate? And then the third thing that really strikes me is, not to allude to the fact that this could be a county with residents that all have, or many can have a beef with each other. But if your neighbor doesn't like you, how valid are those complaints? What are they based on? Who's going to substantiate that somebody, quite frankly, just doesn't want to be a jerk to their neighbor? You know, that person doesn't fall in line with whatever they feel they should be doing. You know, our kids paid one in the county fair and his didn't, and I don't know, now we don't like you. I joke about that, but, you know, in all small towns, I grew up in a small town. I tell people that Manitou used to be like Westcliff, and they don't believe me. That's why I moved here. It's exactly like it. And, you know, I've been a big repeater of the phrase since I've gotten here. It's not whether or not do you want change. You know, life, the world, finances, small towns change. How do you appropriately direct in the most positive manner the change that is coming? How do you maintain your community? How do you direct the positive growth and quiet and nature of, you know, what is coming? You know, that might be a little bit more, in my opinion, a positive and appropriate way to look at something, because unfortunately I come from a town who, because of their, you know, many of the old, long-time locals were anti-growth and therefore were a detriment to the town because of, instead of changing the growth that was coming, got priced out and run over. And the hometown that I knew is no longer in existence because of that. So having a more realistic look at how do we gear the growth that's coming for what we want to maintain here, in my humble opinion, I think it gives this entire community a better chance. So that's all I have to say.
I have my notes this time. All right. Caroline again. We pay sales tax because we belong to an organization that regulates our VRBO. We bring in lots of different clientele for the town and the businesses. Of course, we don't make any revenue if it's vacant, but our next guests are coming to the dark skies, and I love it. And I just think it's getting better and better, and I love that we are in this process. But like all of the other VRBOs here, we do feel a little bit put upon, and I'm hoping that that's not the ultimate result. The ones in people in Vail, perhaps. We'll just use that one, because that's, you know, the hoity-toity thing here in Colorado, and they pay $5 for their permit. So if I put that one out for you really quickly, they're very, very wealthy, and they pay $5. That's the roof of the good way, and I love it. Anyway, when we file taxes with Colorado, we pay those taxes, and it is a regulation, and we've been doing it for all the time, all this is our third year possibility. And the more occupied a residence is, according to my property manager, who is a retired assistant police chief, thank you, Paul, he said the more occupied a residence is, the better the crime rate, it reduces law enforcement necessities, and that's something we really need to consider as far as quality of life here. So, thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions?
You say
say that this is not a financial issue, are we guaranteed that we're not going to be, our taxes are going to go up to the commercial rate? Or what is the rate going to cost for this? I mean, because if you were to tax us at a commercial rate, we would not be able to survive. We'd have to have at least 1 month just to pay those taxes. I mean, and that would be 30 days, to pay that increase. And that would devastate our business.
Thank you. You want me to answer that?
Yeah, I got one more. You want to?
I'm going to answer his question. As of now, the state of Colorado states told our county assessor that you will not be charged at a commercial rate. You'll just be charged at a residential rate. But that's no guarantee.
Certainly that's commercial use of the property. Why shouldn't it be taxed at a commercial rate?
Again, I have to reiterate, a residence being used as a residence is not a commercial use. Whether I rent to somebody for 30 days or I rent to people, individual groups for that same 30 days, it's still residential use. I just choose to capitalize differently on the customer. Yes, I realize that they are much more transient. They are not full-time residents, but it's being used as a residential property. 30-day rentals, long-term rentals, however you want to term it, are no different use of that property, or short-term rentals are no different use of that property than a long-term. There, as Bianca was brought up, I'm not using my property any differently, especially when compared to a contractor who's running trucks in and out of there. I have one right down the street from my house. There's 4 or 5 commercial vehicles running into that all day long. He probably makes 2 to 3 trips in with several vehicles every day going in and out of that residence. He's running a business at his residence. Yes, I am renting it on different terms than a normal 30-day long-term rental, but it is still a residence being rented as a residence. So it is we can try and play semantics with property usage definitions all we want to, but it's people living, eating, and sleeping in a home. The terms under which I get paid for that, I'm sorry, but it's actually irrelevant to the government.
Because I knew that the commercial thing was an issue, I looked up the definition in your zoning book, and commercial retail, it's only one line, I wish I had it in front of me, but it is, I don't know what page it's on, but it's that commercial retail pertains to businesses that have foot traffic, and no short-term rental has foot traffic except by reservation. So there was a clear defining definition that commercial was more about the foot traffic, that people can go in and out of the business. So I just want to clarify that definition.
I think you were looking under the home occupation, weren't you? Because we do have
it's a big document.
Yeah, I'm sure it's in here under home occupation.
No, I think I was looking under definitions because I looked up bunkhouse as well. So you might just want to check that.
She's exactly right. She's right. She scored.
Okay. So a couple more things I just wanted to add is I did have, I feel like how restrictive this ends up being is going to definitely impact a lot of other businesses besides Airbnb and VRBO, mainly real estate, local restaurants. I had an architecture client that was supposed to close on a lot in about a week and a half, and he checked planning and zoning about the Airbnb restrictions coming down the pipeline, and him and his wife were an amazing couple. They were hoping to retire here. He was a pastor, and they were gonna retire in a couple of years, and they were really counting on the Airbnb to make that second vacation home work for them until they could retire and move here. And so I think how restrictive you end up handling this, I think you should look at it in the eye of that it is going to impact a lot of other businesses. And I know, being through the SUP process, we kept hearing ag only, ag only, ag only. That's the original zoning resolution in 71. Well, I read through that zoning resolution pretty extensively, and it does also include recreational and residential use, of which Airbnb is a part of. And so, times are changing. My husband's in ranching. I mean, we have 32 horses on our property. We have a lot of ranching friends here that say that they're struggling to make a living like they used to. And so I think we have to be open to moving forward with maintaining what everybody loves about this community, which is that it is small and special and quaint, but doing it in a managed growth way that allows for change. And so.
It just came to mind, talking about the Jim order, I'm sorry. Talking about the change of what's going on in the world today and the populations and everything that are growing. In 1971, that was 50 years ago today, or about this time. Things have changed a lot. And even though the county may have been set up the way that people view it, it's been 50 years since then, and somebody came in here and broke up a lot of these plots and sold all these 5-acre lots or 10-acre lots for people to put houses on. And you can't look at this as still being a totally agricultural place, because it's not. It's got a totally different situation than it was 50 years ago. And we've got to grow and adjust for those things. So I just needed to point that out. I just think that's so very important. It irritates the heck out of me to see places torn up and look rummy. And that's, every time I drive up the hill to my house, I see one of those. And it just is so irritating. A lot of places have gotten better, but that's one that's gotten twice as worse as it was 10 years, 15 years, or 12 years ago when we bought our property. Thank you. Thank you.
For half miles again, at what point does the nightly rental of a home turn it into a hotel? Yeah. Oh,
My name is Evan Wilcox. I've lived in the valley for 15 years. I did not get into Airbnb intentionally. I'm in it now. I love it. It's extra income for my family. I agree with Bianca. I feel like we're being forced into this government overseeing us. Is the fire department ready to come out and check for fire extinguishers, which, by the way, I have many of in each house. I have smoke detectors, I have carbon monoxide, I have ladders so people can escape. I take pride in my home. My rental before it was an Airbnb, my utilities have gone down half of what they were with 2 people living in there. So now it's an Airbnb at 80-90% occupancy. My propane has gone down 50%. My electricity has gone down 50%, which means I'm guessing my water usage has gone down 50%. I have my property on a county road, which is not maintained by the county. I spent thousands out of my pocket. You're welcome to maintain that road. I'm not asking anybody for handouts. I don't want a bunch of people here to ruin this valley. I came here because I wanted more thousand people. And I wanted it to stay that way. It's not going to stay that way. I have these homes, I need to do something with them. So, as long as you understand where we're coming from, I don't want a huge monopoly of these. I just want to be able to pay the taxes and grow equity so that I have something to leave my children. That's it. We're not trying to take over the valley with Airbnbs. Thank you.
We actually think this is the best interest.
At this point, we've had some folks send in some letters, and I think, Jeff, you want to review those?
Okay, actually, I got 7 letters. Well, actually, I got 9 letters, but one decided to email me 3 times. So I'm only counting him once. So we got 7 letters. One was from Charlie Ellison, Tracy Gullett, G-U-L, and Tracy.
Line muted.
Pardon?
Line unmuted.
It's Vernon, he's being rude. Arthur, Nicole Parsons. Arthur, where you going?
Mother Man?
Mother Man. Andrew Miller, and they were all against him. Against this regulation for short-term rentals.
And I just got one this morning from Julie and Matt
Stanford. So, the emails are being sent not only to the zoning office, but to Vic and to all 3 of our commissioners. And I would imagine that the majority of them are against any regulations for short-term rentals. That's all I wanted to say.
Any further comments? Yeah.
Well, so do you think you will put together a workshop that can be constructive if you want to continue with some regulation? I understand that having a license, just so you know what is in the valley, but it probably doesn't have to be as detailed.
I can imagine too that we have one more public hearing, so we got to hear from one more public hearing, and then the planning commission on whatever they decide. It could be as simple as, hey, everyone, please sign up that you've got an Airbnb in case we need to have an alert and stuff, you know, at that time. It could be so simple, or it could be tweaking these.
And then let me just suggest if you do hold a workshop, that you put a letter to the editor or an article on the paper, and don't rely on that fine print on the back page.
I forgot, you're old.
Hey, somebody called me young. Well, there's more than one way to send out the announcement.
Yes.
I think that, I can't speak for the planning commission, we'll talk about it, but, you know, I've been pretty encouraged, but obviously a lot of people don't want us to do anything. But, you know, we're strictly volunteers here, we enjoy, I don't know how many years we've got, all these people here, we've been here a long time, you know, all the changes, but we still value this valley, and that's what we're trying to improve. We're not trying to impose any unusual regulations. And so, I think we'll probably agree to have another workshop, but I think first I'd give the planning commission members an opportunity to make any comments.
Well, don't you think that,
My comment is that you just define the process. We've had this hearing, we have a hearing tomorrow evening, and then the planning commission is going to get together, discuss what we've heard, what we've already done, decide what we're going to do going forward as a recommendation. And I think we should stand by that.
Yeah, no, yeah, no doubt. Any other comments from planning commission? Okay,
Comment, Vic.
yes.
Why aren't there any women sitting over there?
Oh.
You just said volunteer, though, you know, I was just asking, where's Jackie the woman?
Jackie's a woman?
Jackie's a woman?
That was rude, I'm a woman.
Yeah, there have been women on planning commission.
But they passed away.
I sort of jest. I thought men died before women.
Not on this board.
Do you have a comment?
Yeah, that's picture.
You have another comment?
I do.
Okay.
It's not about RVs either. Can you guys take a look at when the rule was made on when legal signs could be posted? Because they didn't have mail-in ballots back in the 70s. And it would seem logical to me if the ballots come out on the 9th, I think the 9th and the 19th, that maybe 30 days prior to that, the signs could be put up. It's just a suggestion, I'm not telling you guys what it is.
Okay, so I think it's 6.5 of our zoning regs. Isn't that what it is? I should have this down by heart. No, that's permitted signs, 6.5. Okay, so every time the political season rolls around, I have to tell all our candidates to take down, and it's not just one, it's a lot, take down their political signs. Some people still had some political signs on their fences. In our regs, it says you can put them up
30 days.
prior to the election. Well, now we have mail-in ballots. So that doesn't make
I'm gonna
any.
love you guys. Good question.
So I made some phone calls this last 2 weeks to tell the candidates that their signs had to come down. So you're putting me in a bad position because it could be my boss. Can we change the political sign rate?
We can discuss it at the next planning and zoning meeting.
Okay? And that would be tomorrow night or the next meeting?
Okay, we're pointing out on the planning commission, you guys are in favor of having a workshop at some point in time to discuss this input that we've got today, and we'll get it tomorrow.
I thought we were just gonna vote.
Hush. Yeah. Okay. Then what we have to do, that will be a public workshop, and since we don't have any on the schedule, so you're gonna have to put in for that, right? For 2 weeks ahead of time? Okay. Do you have a preference on when
We only have Mondays.
you want to do it Monday?
We only have this courtroom on a Monday.
Okay. And then, excuse me, let me ask the people here, is it more preferable to have a workshop in the afternoon or the evening?
Yes.
Whatever for people.
One of each?
And your one
Otherwise, kind of where these guys are.
Or do you want to set?
No.
Yeah. Evening.
No.
Mr. Chairman, I thought we agreed that we would discuss this at the next meeting, how we were going to proceed. So that includes whether we're gonna, when and how we're going to do a workshop.
Okay. When did we decide that?
Just about 5 minutes ago when you were screaming.
Yeah, that's what you said.
Well, no, I said, well, the suggestion was that we have a workshop, which I think, I don't think it's a question, we need a workshop to consolidate the inputs that are coming in, right? And you're talking about whether or not we have a workshop.
Exactly.
I'm talking about the planning commission discussing it at a regular meeting.
When to have a workshop.
So you don't want a special
I didn't
workshop?
say that.
So we've got this, and we've got tomorrow, right?
We got this and then what else?
And we need to be able to discuss what we've heard, and then go from there. Nobody's against a workshop, but I think it's premature to start making up a workshop.
I would say wait until after tomorrow. Okay. I think we're talking the same thing, Mike. I mean, if we're gonna talk about the input, isn't that basically the same thing as a workshop?
That's it.
No.
Tell me the difference.
Well, I think we need to be able to confer and discuss what we've heard, to then be able to come back and have a workshop with others if you're sitting down and working something out. Like, correct, you come back and help, or you not?
Yeah, I'm the moon. But I think that after tomorrow night, that you should have a clear thought of how you stand. Are you gonna move forward with this rate? And it just seems like it's a short-term rental that's the sticking point. Are you gonna move forward with the short-term rental? Are you going to tweak it, or are you gonna drop it? And I would think that by tomorrow night, you should know which one you're gonna vote for. And if you're gonna tweak it, then you have a workshop. If you're gonna drop it, then why are we having a workshop?
Right.
So do you want to discuss that then tomorrow night, at the end of the meeting?
No, but tomorrow night is not a public, planning commission meeting. It's a public hearing. So we can't make a recommendation.
No, a hearing. It's a hearing is a meeting. Remember, we changed that in our zoning.
That discussion should be at a regular planning commission meeting, which tomorrow night is.
So when's our next first scheduled meeting?
We got an SUP coming up, so we'll be on.
Should be the first few days of October, should it not?
Yeah. Just a minute. So is that what you want to do is we have obviously we're going to have the public meeting tomorrow night, and then you want to wait until October 3rd before we make that an agenda item?
I don't, it's up to those boys.
Okay, that's what they all want. How about the rest of you guys?
I would recommend sooner rather than later, so we can keep it fresh in our minds.
I agree, that's why I'm really trying to get going, so we don't want to linger on forever.
Can't be much quicker than October 3rd.
Yeah, do we want to set up for October 3rd? Okay, all right, then that's what we'll do. We had a comment out there?
Vic, who wrote the wording? Where did it come from? The red, all the stuff in red. Was it the planning commission?
Yes.
Or did you steal it from another county?
We did a little bit of both.
Say what?
We relocated it from another county.
Which they have nothing to do with our county at all. And I know.
And we're talking about the specifics of the short-term rental.
Right.
And then Vic and Skip tweaked it.
I'm sorry, what?
Vic and Skip tweaked it.
Got it. And which county did it initially come from?
Park, Salida, Chaffee, and Leadville.
Yeah. Which, to me, I'm trying to found another county like ours. You know what I'm saying? I mean, I think a lot of wording is from different areas.
Matt Miles again. I'd like to make a point that I don't think people are really aware of, that are, may not be. Unless someone's not aware of something. Oh no, I don't know. But to my knowledge, there's a county in upstate New York where 120 acres is required to build a house. This county, it's 80 in certain zones. This county is the second one down from that one in New York. This county is unique, in my opinion. There's no other like it. And it's like this because of what was done many years ago. And I heard people say, well, we got progress and change and stuff. But that's an observation I have. This county is the way it is because of what happened many years ago by people that looked at the situation, studied it, and made some decisions then, and were tough decisions then, and there's tough decisions coming now. Now, of course, I would expect Mrs. Hobby to steal something from another county. She's not a scrivener. I would suggest that's the best place to go to start. But insofar as another county that's unique, if it's the same as this one or similar, if there is one, I'd like to know where it is, because I've never seen anything as unique as this place.
Thank you.
We got a gentleman on that question over here. Yeah, on my view on the sign, anytime between now and the next election.
I can add one more thing. This is a country of rebels, and a lot of the people that have come to our VRBO and Airbnb, if those get shut down, there'll be an LLP and a PPS going to pop up to deal with. That's one point. And then a lot of the people that have now come every year have become our friends. And, you know, we can also just go underground. You know, it might struggle a little bit, but like anything that gets overregulated goes underground, which is usually worse in the end. But anyway, thank you for all being here and hearing us.
Thank you. Anybody else have any comments?
You know, while it's true that, you know, a lot of the rules that were passed years ago has helped preserve the valley. But the flip side of that is that the budget and the cost to run things now in the valley is far different than what it was then. And short-term rentals contribute a lot to the revenue that this county needs in order to continue to provide the services that it does that didn't exist years ago when we were trying to preserve all the valley. So, you know, I hear a lot about the sewer. Matter of fact, one of the commissioners told me several months ago when this whole thing first came up that it didn't apply to the cities because those people were on public sewer, implying that the ones out in the county that were unincorporated, this short-term rental is a sewer issue. Well, we cannot assume that all the short-term rentals are illegal because they're not. But there are laws in place for sewer requirements for anywhere. And I say enforce those sewer laws if there's violations. And I don't know, so many of these barns that are being built have apartments above them. And I don't know what the permit process is for that as far as it comes to sewer. But I'm assuming some of them were short-term rentals, and when they built them, their sewer systems were built for the amount of bedrooms that were going to be on that property. Is that not correct?
You're correct.
Okay. So, you know, I don't know how they would be in violation then of their sewer permit, but there are laws in effect for some of this stuff, and I say enforce those violations if that's what it is, and not require all this other stuff that we see in these regulations. It seems, you know, like overkill.
Pardon?
to address the septic.
Okay, and that's a great point. Because when I look at the short-term rentals, we have a lot of people that play by the rules. But we have very few people, it's just like everything else, we have to be reactive, that are not playing by the rules. And they have, common septic is 2 bedrooms. They have a 2-bedroom septic, but they're renting their VRBO out for 12 people. So a 2-bedroom septic would only allow 4 people. So we're back at usage, and that's a health issue. And so I have one property that's advertising for 40. Okay, but let me tell you another story, and it's a good one. Out at Lake Dewey's, they were renting a VRBO. I knew that their septic system wasn't adequate. And I will tell you that the gentleman put in over a $20,000 septic system to run his VRBO because he was too close to Lake Dewey's. And that had to be an engineered system. So you take all it takes is someone to screw up, and we get many phone calls, and that's how come it comes to this. But everyone's suggestion is great. We could do it through the septic systems, and I've benefited from a VRBO. My house got sold because the people in the back had someone renting their VRBO. And it was a blessing. So I'm not against VRBOs, but I am, and it goes in waves. And I know this is a bad year because everyone's cooped up and stuff, but I've had a picnic bench removed from someone's home and taken to their property, the VRBO. We had a 4-wheeler stolen next door to a VRBO. We have a lot of children who are partying at these VRBOs. They rent a house, 1 or 2 of them, and they've turned 21 or something, so they're going up there and partying. Overuse of the septic is another one. Trespassing, they're just, you come up here and you let your dogs just run and they go over to the neighbors and do their business and come back. People don't understand that other people live here. That is just not a short-term rental person. We had some, not a lot, but we had some operating during the COVID ban. We have animals tied to trees because they bring their dogs and they tie their dogs to the trees and they bark all night. Our resources as a sheriff cannot combat all of these problems. Now, I'm not saying that you have a problem or anybody else has a problem, but there's a lot of problems that go on behind the scenes that the sheriff has to be called to, like dogs barking. Well, I don't want my sheriff's office to go up in the hills of Vermont and see if the dog is barking because it's been tied to a tree for over 2 days. I want my sheriff's department to be able to go out on a traffic accident and maybe save someone. So not everyone plays by the rules, and it's a sad deal because a lot of times when you're even in school, you never see the kids' parents that are bad. You only see the kids' parents that are good. So I look out here and I see all these people that run decent VRBOs or short-term rentals. I don't see the ones that are not running the decent VRBOs because they're not going to come and have the finger pointed at them, saying you're overusing your septic, you're advertising for 20 people and you only have a 2-bedroom septic, which is 4 people. That's the problem. We only have you people showing up and you're in you do it right. I'm not going to see the bad ones. Don?
Can I agree with you 100%?
No, thank you.
And stipulate
that every one of the things that you just mentioned, septic, dogs running loose, maltreatment of animals, every one of the things you just said, I've experienced with full-time residents.
Exactly.
That that's my point. VRBO, Airbnb has nothing to do with any of that. Those are things my full-time neighbors have done.
Yeah.
The people that live here full-time, not here just, in every place I've lived. Yes, those are all obnoxious properties, but none of those are VRBO or Airbnb specific at all.
Except if you get turning 21 or 20.
And then I am.
And then if you're a good poster, running by your own.
Actually, I've experienced that too. Mom and dad gone for the weekend, or that's a rental or a vacation property, and the kid went down to the mountains for the weekend, and oh my God, it's not a rental, it's not an Airbnb. They're just kids that need to be spanked.
That's exactly the reason it should be may and not shall. So if people are not policing their renters, their tenants, or whoever they are, then when they come in for the permit, they're shut down and say, no, sir, you didn't police your people. Your neighbor, you can do something about it. But the weekly thing or whatever, different. That's why I want to be may and not shall. And I think these rules, when you look at them, obviously they weren't just willy-nilly decided. If you listen to what happened here, there was a lot of thought went into the rules or regulations that you people are trying to put together, and I think you should be applauded for that.
There's a weird statistic that's come up a couple times, whoever's young man not shall, and Mr. Smith, I believe, is the attorney.
Yes.
We'll probably be happy to argue this with you or stipulate on this, but fairness and equality across the board, if you feel you need to put in these regulations, you need to put in specific guidelines. And when someone meets those guidelines, the verbiage should be shall, because otherwise you are not making a subjective call. If you meet these criteria, shall is the appropriate verbiage. Because if you meet these criteria, you qualify for this. May means it's subjective and we can determine whether we like it or not.
But here's another thing. In order to run a business in Custer County, you have to apply and get approval for a special use permit. Okay? And along with the special use permit, not only is it a fee, but you've got that whole list of what you would have to bring in with your application. Your neighbors are notified.
Yes, ma'am.
And that's part of it, because the number one thing is we're losing our community up here because we don't have the same neighbor. We have turnover in this house. So your neighbors are going to be able to comment on, and that's how come it's May.
My question what that is, and I agree, again, I sat here during one of your special use permit hearings. I get it. I'm requesting you use a residence as a resident. I get it, you don't like, again, how is this different than Bianca has a vacation property that is just her vacation property? It's her second home. Her cousin, her sister, her brother-in-law, everybody comes and stays there at various times throughout the year. How is that any different?
Oh, I agree. You're gonna put a T-shirt that says that now?
And I think that is part of our problem, and Bianca said this very well too. We're feeling subjugated by this, as if this particular community is BRB Airbnb folks are being attacked. Because I'll guarantee you, none of us, I would be willing to bet money. Not one person here wants this valley to change demographically. The reality, in fact, I wish, going many years back, zoning had never changed to the small parcel residences. I wish it was all still a large ranching community, large parcels, et cetera, et cetera. Nobody wants to change that demographic. But what we're talking about, and where I think we're losing focus is, we're talking about using residences as residences. We're not talking about anything different than that. I'm not talking about having a pottery shop in my house, or having any other type of business that causes traffic. I'm talking about using a residence as a residence on what is already zoned residential. I don't want the demographics to change. In fact, honestly, and I think Ellen alluded to this, I wish the tourists weren't coming and screwing up my valley. I wish they weren't coming and clogging up the freaking roads most of the year. But as long as they're here, why can't they use a residence, an existing residence as a residence? Exactly. I would rather we use existing residences as housing than have a commercial structure built. More stuff and make our city bigger, because that's more of an impact on the demographics of this valley than me using a home as a home for a business. I think that's the problem we're seeing.
Okay, thank you. We've got, are you leaving?
No, I have one last comment.
We've got to cut it off.
I do.
Go ahead.
Well, I would just hope that actually would not depend on your neighbor, because as someone who already holds an SUP, we had a complaint rolled in before we even did an activity. And so some of us have neighbors that are going to complain even when you're not doing anything.
That's just bad.
And so that we don't have a chance at all of running a nice, peaceful, quiet operation, because some of us have bad neighbors that just don't want to see you do anything. And so what do you do for people like us if it's dependent on your neighbors who just don't want to see you have anything on your property? So just something to think about on that.
We're going to call this meeting, we're going to adjourn this meeting. Thanks for your participation, and we'll keep you posted.
So tomorrow it's
No. Yes, you are. No.